Brian, Rob, J. King, and Sam Packard present Steel Bottle, Steel Bottle, Boston Celtics, Steel Bottle, Steel Bottle. Oh yeah! Steel Bottle, Steel Bottle, Boston Celtics, Steel Bottle, Steel Bottle. And a 19. Jalen Brown, D. White, Crazy Joe. Steel Bottle, Steel Bottle. When Tatum coming back. Steel Bottle. Oh yeah! Come on, Mom. I want some wings. Don't get the next generation.
Let's go,
Your family,
Celtics. Let's go, baby. Let's go.
family.
Celtics, let's go.
Welcome back to Still Potable, the best Celtics podcast here on Al Gore's internet. I am Sam Packard, joined from MassLive.com, Celtics beat reporter, the great Brian B. Robb, and from The Athletic, the king, the god, the legend himself, J. King. Ladies and gentlemen, we are coming to you on a Tuesday evening. The Celtics just beat the Bulls to start off their long home streak. Why
home
does that
stand.
Home stand. It makes way more
that's
sense.
not how you say it. That's
Home
why it sounds
stand.
weird, because you're a moron.
You nailed it. You actually figured that out almost immediately. We are Still Potable. We are a Monday through Friday Boston Celtics podcast. We are absolutely obsessed with the Boston Celtics. If you want to hear a podcast from us every single day of the week, go to patreon.com/Still Potable. Subscribe today. Participate in chat and get every single one of those podcasts. Today, it's one of our free shows. That means we are on the CLNS YouTube network. That means we're also brought to you by Prize Picks. Use promo code CLNS to get $50 after you play your first $5 lineup. That's promo code CLNS. And we got some trade rumors, official trade rumors to talk about. But before we get to that, I did a little solo pod for the Patreon folks out there last night. And that was just me ranting and raving for a good 15 minutes. But you guys were both there, both in the building. Feels like a long time since the Celtics have played a home game. But B-Rob, it wasn't the sharpest of games. Jalen Brown seemed like he was exhausted for the majority of the game. He did not have his best performance, but the Celtics still found a way to win. It absolutely destroyed the Bulls on the margins. But what was your biggest takeaway from what was a pretty easy victory over the Chicago Bulls?
Yeah, that was just brutal to watch for the first two quarters, to say the least.
Atrocious basketball game.
It felt like a terrible night.
Anthony Simon saved me from losing my eyes.
Yeah. And that's kind of the story. I mean, for me, that was a story. Like Simons, we've talked about him a bit over the last few weeks, but he has been a consistent bright spot, and that for him to erupt like that in the second half of that game when literally no one else had it going in that game, period. And so that way for them to cruise to the win like that, it just kind of puts a nice bow on what was a great December for him. And now it looks like his stock is rising in this rotation as by the game, it seems like.
And Joe has just been hyping him up, hyped up the defense after the last game. The bench has become a huge strength for the Celtics, which early in the season, I'm not sure a lot of people saw coming.
No one.
After all the talent they lost, and then the first few weeks of the season, like minutes with Garza were a disaster. Minutes with Garza and Simons together were a disaster. And now those guys are playing in lineups that just kick ass every night. It's stunning. It really is. Hugo Gonzalez helps seemingly every time he's on the court. Baylor Shireman has contributed in spot minutes. Josh Minot has had some strengths. He hasn't even been in the rotation lately. It's just a deep team. And Simons, he definitely still has some defensive limitations, but he's competed. And I think beyond that, he's just been willing to submit himself to the team concept, willing to come off the bench, willing to give up some of his touches. And then you see it, you've seen it a handful of times. He he just ignites. And to have a guy like that off the bench who's not just chucking, it's not like he's an inefficient chucker off the bench. He's an efficient guy, and when he goes off, he just goes off. Like when Anthony Simons gets hot, there aren't many guys who get hotter than he does. So that's what happened to the Bulls. Bulls got the worst of it. But yeah, that was an atrocious basketball. I figured it would be an atrocious game. So in the Celtics locker room after they beat the Kings, so this was before they finished the road trip in LA. They were talking about how tired they were going to be on the first game back from the road
can't
trip.
Put that out into the air. That's just a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Because they were so they normally fly right after a game, but because it was a 5-hour flight from LA to Boston, they flew the next day, landed around 8 o'clock. So basically they spent the whole day flying. And then it was basically like the road trip was still going. Like it was the 6th game of a road trip, because it doesn't feel like you're at home when you just land at 8, probably go to bed short time after that, wake up and just go to work again. And so they were talking, some of the guys were talking about how brutal that travel was, and you could see it. Like Jalen had nothing. That was his worst game in a long fucking time. Like he has been locked in, he has been dialed in. He did not treat Modest Bazelis like he treated Kawhi Leonard. Let's just put it that way. He did not have that same energy for that one. And Derek White, like he was off for most of the game. There was just no energy. They're lucky that the Bulls suck. And
the Bulls are so bad. They just don't have anyone other than Bazelis who it scares you.
And they just got torched on the offensive glass. That was the impressive part to me of the Celtics. Like I don't even know if their defense was good. The Bulls were 2 for 20 from the arc at one point. They were getting a bunch of open looks. I know they didn't shoot well and were inefficient, and scored 33 first half points. But I don't know how good the Celtics defense was. But to hustle like that on the glass and to dominate the glass the way that they did when you're coming off the tough travel day and the long road trip and it's your first game back, Joe likes to call those mindset wins, and I think that was a good mindset win.
Yeah, 14 offensive rebounds in the first half. I think ended with 20 with the game. Like I said, it was a completely like a margin victory. The Bulls took 86 shots. The Celtics took 104. Like that feels like a much wider gap than we've seen the Celtics have against any opponent this season.
20 offensive rebounds to 6. And that, like I said, when you're fatigued, when you're fighting through it, to then win the hustle stats like that, that's just great stuff.
And the bench has been doing it consistently. Like this is going on close to a month now in this stretch where the starters haven't needed to be picked up every game like this, but this is at a point now where like all the leaders in the last month on this team and like net rating and stuff it's all bench players, because that group has been consistent, whether it's Simons, guards up for these last 7 or 8 games. Ugo's been, a monster in that area all year long, but now he's getting more minutes, but it's been there every given night. And now these are the games that take advantage of it. And if you look at the schedule for the rest of the month, Packard, it's like these games are there for them to take pretty much all the way through, outside of a couple high-profile ones.
And it's important to win the games where you don't necessarily have it. And especially, I feel like they've struggled in games. Jaylen Brown's pretty much brought it every single game, but in games when Jaylen brings it and then either Peyton Pritchard or Derek White doesn't have it, I feel like that's when they've played the much closer games. And so having a guy like Simons who can come in and score 18 straight points, who can knock down 8 threes, I think is important for them. And that brings me to my next question. Jay, I feel like if we had to rate like the Celtics' motivation to trade Anthony Simons at the start of the year, it was at like a 9. Where do you think that rating is now? Like how eager do you think the Celtics are to kind of get hit under the luxury tax, maybe flip him for a big, or has he played well enough where it's just like they are more comfortable just kind of letting it ride with him still on the roster?
Before we get into that, I just want to say one more thing about the second unit and their success lately. Actually, 2 more things. Number one, What do you think the Celtics' offensive rebound rate is with Luka Garza on the court?
72.
Yeah, I was gonna say 70%.
Offensive rebound rate?
I don't know.
72?
You wouldn't frame the question that way if it wasn't obscenely large.
72 would be like double the greatest in NBA history. Not really double the greatest, but
let's say what's good? Like 20, like 30,
so I'll
30%?
read you the top 5 offensive rebound rates by team. Rockets 40.8%, Pistons 36.6, Blazers 35.6, Hornets 34, and Suns 34.
I'm going to do this Price is Right style. So if you go over, you lose. I'm going to say with Luka Garza on the court, they're at a solid 33.33%.
I'm going 43%.
37%, which would only be trailing Steven Adams' Rockets for the season. The Celtics as a team are 6th in offensive rebound rate. That's a huge piece of their success. And what's most impressive to me, this is the second point I want to add about the bench. What really stands out to me is all these guys know their roles. And it's super impressive because Anthony Simons was the leading scorer in Portland. He was the go-to guy. And for him to know his role, well, basically with that group, it is like looking for his bucket, but it's also playing off, Derek White, playing off Jaylen Brown, whoever's playing with the bench at that time. Luka Garza, he knows his role is to come in and get every offensive rebound that he can get. Hugo Gonzalez knows, as Anthony Simons puts it, his job is to just go in there and run. Just run around. And all those guys, like they play their roles really well. And it's impressive because it's a bunch of guys who have never really played before, and Anthony Simons, who is adjusting to a totally new role. And they all know their roles really, really well. That's coaching. That's guys being committed to doing what they need to do. And that's how the second unit has become a huge, huge strength for the Celtics lately. They go on runs seemingly every time the second unit goes in the court. It's just super, super impressive. All right, back to the Anthony Simons question. How urgent are they to trade him? Was that the question?
Yeah, like it has their kind of mindset. The vibe going into the season was like Anthony Simons basically solely exists on this roster as a means to try and like trade him. They probably not going to re-sign him. They want to get under the tax, and I feel like given how much of a pleasant surprise he has been, I think the question is how motivated do you think they are to kind of include him in a deal at this point?
Yeah, I think the motivation before would have been like, okay, Celtics, the motivations that remain are that the Celtics are $12.1 million over the tax. That is an absolute motivator. And if you can somehow get under the tax and still accomplish another goal, like getting a big man, perhaps, we'll talk more about that, then that's something you would need to consider. And to do that, basically, Anthony Simons would probably need to be included somehow. That's just the way it works. Where the motivation is probably lessened is that Anthony Simons really fits this team well. And he has come in, he has done everything they've asked him to do. He's committed more to defense. He's been willing to come off the bench. He's played off guys. He's been, from the looks of it, like perfectly coachable. And so from that perspective, I think, there's not necessarily motivation to get rid of him. It's just like the motivation would be that to do some other goals that you'd have, like he might need to be involved. That's it. And also, realistically, like Jason Tatum is coming back at some point, and how it is now is not how it's always going to be. He's on the final year of his contract, and as well as he's playing right now, it's not going to be like this forever because Jason Tatum is going to come back. Some of those scoring responsibilities are going to go to him. A lot of those scoring responsibilities are going to go to him. Guys are going to get pushed down a rung, and then you might not need as much of Simons. And then, if he's not part of your longer term plans, which he's probably not, then you'd be kicking yourself at not trying to use that contract to make something happen at the trade deadline, whether that's cutting tax or finding a big or both, and that's just where it stands, I think.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that has changed on top of that now is just like before the season, no one thought this team would be here at this point in the season as far as where the standings were. And so that does change, I think, the calculus to a degree here where it's like, all right, the tax motivator, the financial factors, the building for the future, that was priority number one, you would think, when we're talking about this in the summer. Now we're talking about this now. I think the present has to be accounted for the conversation of being like, we don't want to move him and take a step back on the court while we do that, which he's played well enough for that has to be consideration. Obviously, trading him for a big, that would be something where you're filling a need. So that would be an understandable thing to do when Tatum is seemingly on his way back. But it's not as cut and dry now, I feel like, as it was a couple months ago, being like, all right, let's get under the tax. Hopefully he builds up his value. Now it's like you're kind of messing with what's a good thing going on here. And not to say that they shouldn't do that anyway, because as Jay pointed out, like a lot of stuff is going to change in this team in the next couple months. But now you're not just like getting rid of him just to get rid of him from a financial standpoint, because not that he's been a world beater here, Packard, but he's like, this is still, this team is rolling right now, and you want to. I'm curious how much they want to ride that wave while it lasts up until the trade deadline at this point.
I would also guess that other teams have taken note of how well the Celtics have played with Anthony Simons on the court.
Yeah, certainly.
Because that was a huge question about him, is how much does what he does impact winning? And there are a lot of other reasons why the Celtics have played so well with Anthony Simons on the court. But one of those is that he has just been really good. And he's competed, at least defensively. He's just an insane shooter, like just a fantastic shooter. And he can shoot off ball. And to me, like the biggest thing that teams should take note of is like, he's been willing to do all of it. He's been excited about the challenge of learning how to be part of a winning team. And like, he's just had the right mindset and attitude from the start, from the time he showed up in Boston, and combined with his talent, like you can turn that into something if you're another team, and the Celtics have turned that into something.
What's his bird rights situation be, Rob? Like, could a team and so the team acquiring him could have his bird rights, making it, because that'd be a nice little thing if you're a team trying to trade for Anthony Simons, you have his bird rights, maybe you can extend him. I have no idea what his number is going to be in terms of AAV over his next contract, but it would shock me if he got close to the 25 or what is he making, $27 million this year?
Yeah, when honestly he's playing well, it wouldn't stun me for that number to be cut like in half. Like just be like I don't know who's going to give him above like a full mid-level exception. I mean, just because not because it's more just the depth of the position around the league right now. It's like, is he a starting point guard? Which teams actually need a starting point guard or a six man? And now with the spending that we've seen that is trending down beyond like the top-notch talent here around the league, his situation is fascinating for him. His reps right now, and I don't know, like that all would be part of the consideration here of like, okay, the assumption here is he doesn't have a future here. I would lean with like Jay on that. I think that's still the guess, but like, is he going to just be, his number is going to go down like a guy like, I don't know, like Dennis Schroeder over time or something like that, where you think he's this $25 million player, and then the market opens up and it's like, well, actually now you're just a mid-level or less.
So Dennis Schroeder got $15 million a year.
Yeah.
But he turned down 4 for 80.
Karis LeVert got close to $15 million a year.
I think that's a fair range for him then.
That would probably be Nickeil Alexander-Walker is a different type of player, but like $15 million a year.
Yeah. So in the 10 to 15, and again, it depends. And that's why if you're Simons, you want to go to a team that wants you, because the bird, it's much easier to sign that deal with someone with bird rights. If not, you got to have to hope someone has either the mid-level or just open cap space to sign.
Say he loves it here. Is there a chance the Celtics are like, well, 4 for 50 for an extension? Like, we'll do you a little bit under your value, but we'll give you 4 years because we just like a guy at that price, at that number. Like, what is it? Do you think there's any chance? they try to give that type of deal.
It doesn't seem likely to me. And like, as well as he's played right now, Jason Tatum is coming back.
Who?
And Jason Tatum is going to move everybody down a rung. And that means that Peyton Pritchard could be coming off the bench. And like, you're not going to need the bench scoring guard anymore. You're just not. And especially considering how much he's going to make, considering how much they already have committed next season and beyond, like, I don't think it's feasible to bring him back and pay him a significant amount of money. I just don't think it is. As well as he's played, as well as he's fit, as happy as the Celtics have been with everything that he's done, I just don't think there's a long-term fit, because what he's doing today is not what he will be doing tomorrow.
And you need that money for a center. Like, I agree with, like, that would be a great deal, and I think that'd be a deal that he might consider taking if it was on the table for a second, because it's like, I don't know if that money's going to be out there long term anywhere else. But when you have the two Supermaxes on your books and Derek White, if you want to get any type of upgrade on center that's making anything over $10-15 million a year, that's where that money has to be allocated to. And so if you give some of that to Simons, and then now you're up closer to second apron territory again, we know that's an area they are going to be wanting to stay away from, and maybe going much further in a different direction. So yeah, I'm with Jay here. It's like, outside of them moving on from another guard, which I think we can all assume it's probably not going to happen anytime soon, then his long-term future here is still very much a big question mark.
Speaking of needing a center, could that center be Ivica Zubac? We'll answer that question, but first, I need to tell you guys about Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best place to take your takes to the test. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks, and whether you're starting a new routine or making player picks for the first time, trying something new can be hard, but in life and on Prize Picks, it always feels good to be right. With high-pressure playoff matchups every weekend and elite hoops action almost every night, the action never stops, and with Prize Picks, you take control. Prize Picks is a very fun way to get involved in the action. All you have to do is pick more or less on a multiple player stat projections, and you could be making money. Prize Picks is extremely flexible. You can pick a number of different stats. You can even go across sports. Maybe if you want to do a little Jaylen Brown, Drake May, have some fun on a slip this weekend, you can do that on Prize Picks. Maybe you want to be a little bit more conservative and do flex play, where you get paid even if one of your picks misses. Prize Picks has that available to you. But if you want to go for that big money and you want that biggest payout, go for the power play. No matter how you play, Prize Picks is a great way to put your takes to the test. Prize Picks puts their users first, so all withdrawals are fast and secure. Prize Picks accepts most major payments methods, making deposits into your account quick and easy this sports season. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. Now, I mentioned a center. The rumors out today, the Scotto-butt, Mike Scotto. He's on the Wall of Fame for this program. Well-connected NBA insider reported that he's kind of on the trade block. Teams have been more inquiring about Zubac. The price reportedly is 2 first-round picks, but he also reported that the Celtics are one of those teams reportedly making that call. B-Rob, I think the question to me is Zubac, he's under contract for the next 3 years, I believe, at a larger number. Do you see him as the larger fit around, I guess, the Jays and Derek White? He had a phenomenal defensive season last year. I think he was on one of the All-NBA first or second teams. He's in contention for Defensive Player of the Year. I don't think he's been as good defensively this year, but he's still a defensive force, still a big body down there. Is definitely like a starting center. One, do you see him as like a fit around this team, especially given that contract? Yeah, I guess we'll just start with that.
Yeah, I think this is the guy. I mean, we've talked about him, I think probably a couple months ago at this point, just as a fit from a standpoint of the contract is small enough where you can afford it on the books and not have to kind of peel anything off. And he can't, you don't have the shooting from him, but you pretty much have everything else from the rebounding standpoint, from good rim protection. Obviously, the defensive track record you talked about last year, Packard already. And so I don't know, Jay. It's like the question is not whether the Celtics have interest here, which is I don't think a big surprise to us. It's more of is he actually available? Now that the Clippers have kind of turned things around somewhat in the last couple weeks, Jay, and also the price is probably going to be pretty high if you're making a push for him. So I don't know if this is the front office would have to imagine like him a lot to give up Simons and like multiple first round picks. Like I don't know if you want to drain your cupboard that much for this guy, but it's certainly worth discussing.
Absolutely worth discussing, and for a lot of reasons. Number one, like he's just a great defensive center, and those are hard to come by. And he's also, I believe, 28 years old, so that's like right around their wheelhouse, right around where you want guys who are theoretically entering their prime. And he seems to be. Last year was the best year so far of his career. He's gotten better and better, especially defensively. He has a manageable contract where he's under contract for 3 years. He makes about $18 million this year. I think he'll make $20 million 2 years from now. Like, this guy is just a helpful basketball player. And if you can get him and somehow shed salary, that's part of the reason why I think Zubac is like a dream candidate, is because he makes $9 million less than Anthony Simons. Like, there would be ways to build a trade where you could theoretically get under the tax and get Zubac, and you'd have to give up a lot to do it. But that could be worth it to accomplish both of those goals. Get a big man to upgrade the Garza spot. And I just think like it's a no-brainer. Like as well as Luka Garza has played, that's just going to be tough to have him on defense in the playoffs. It absolutely is. And maybe you can get away with it for a little while, but like you just need a championship caliber big man. You need 2 championship caliber big men. And I just think they need another one. So Zubac hasn't had a great year so far, but I don't think that's anything to worry about. Like, he's very good. He's very helpful. He's huge, and he just checks a lot of boxes.
I didn't realize how small his contract was. Like, I thought it was much higher than 20, but it only gets to 20. And I think in the third year, that's around like 10, 12% of the cap. If you can get a starting caliber center, especially a defensive stalwart like him, to put around the Jays, I think it's definitely something you have to consider. I'm pretty willing to throw in, especially this year's first round draft pick, because it feels like they have some young guys who they can develop. Like, they don't necessarily need to add. Obviously, you want to add some young talent, and I'm seeing Joshua B in the chat talking about how we need to celebrate Nemi and we need to celebrate Garza, and the Celtics have been quite good this year. The Celtics, Jay, and hopefully you can look this up, what is their defensive rebounding rate? Like, as good as Luka Garza has been on the offensive glass, he has not helped on the defensive glass.
27th, I think, last check.
And their defense is the 15th ranked defense this year.
They're up to 26th in defensive rebounding.
So there's
a
still
sparkling 26th.
There's still flaws on this team, but like the cliche is that like teams that are contenders need to be like top 5 in offense and defense. And it's just hard to win in the playoffs when you have an average defense. And so I think for the future, you need to have a higher quality defensive product on the court. My question for you, B-Rob, is how much does Jason Tatum's just like mere return to the lineup how much do you think that could improve? I definitely think it improves their rebounding just because he's a great rebounder. He's 6'10". I think it would help their defensive well just in terms of his versatility and his physicality. But does like that solve the issue? Are they willing to just stand pat and see what they have? Or do you think they need, like, no matter what, even with Tatum returning, they need to add a center to improve those parts of the game?
I think you owe it to this team at this point to add, and to the degree of which, if this is there for them, I think as well as they've played this year, it's like the added incentive to like push some of these draft pick chips in now, because you have all these young guys on your roster that are building and you have a pretty big opening in the Eastern Conference this year, on top of having a guy like this under contract for the next 2 years as well. So if it's like Garza is a great story, Simons is a great story right now, but when push comes to shove, are those going to be guys that you can trust in a playoff game versus a guy like Zubac? And I think that's with the big picture questions that the front office is going to have to answer right now. Is like, I think you're leaning towards that. You're not building a feel good story here. You're building like, okay, who puts this team in best position to win when things count, and that may very well include this year as well. So I think you have to address this area. Whether you have the ability to do it now is an open question. Whether this guy is available, whether there's another decent upgraded center available. I guess my only question for a move like this, it's like, where do you stand, Jay? If there's like does this team need a stretch big at all? Is that guy even exist anymore out there, or is it like, is Zubac like not too repetitive to me? Like, he's obviously a much better player than that, but do you want to spend draft capital to find a guy in that mold, or is that guy just probably not even out there for what you're able to offer for him?
Yeah, I don't think you necessarily need a stretch big. Like,
you can play Jason Tatum at the 5 or Josh Minot.
That's it, right?
I don't know if you can play those guys at the 5. We're talking about at the highest level of basketball here. Like, can you play those guys in the regular season? Absolutely. We've seen it. The small ball lineups with Minot at center have been great. Theoretically, with Jason Tatum, they would be much better. But at the highest level of basketball, you need size, you need physicality, and you need that. So, yeah, I don't think they necessarily need a stretch big. Like, their offense is one of the best in the world, and they haven't even had Jason Tatum yet. Like, I do think they need more dynamics to their offense, but I think Tatum will bring them a lot of that. He'll be able to post up. He'll be able to get in the paint more. He'll be able to draw free throws. He'll be able to do a lot of things that they need. And then the offensive rebounding is a huge piece that they haven't had lately. And that's changed their offense. And that's changed, like, they have more of a margin for error in other ways because of all the offensive rebounding that they have on the court right now. And Zubac is another very good offensive rebounder. He's a force on the glass. Not quite probably what Garza has done, but close there, and just much better defensively.
I'm seeing a scorched source say 2 firsts for Zubac would be smoking crack, an overpayment. I'm less attached to these Celtics first round picks just because I think they're going to be later in the first round, just because how competitive they are. And I'm like, who would they be targeting with first round picks? They would be targeting bigs who could go along and play on the same timeline with Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. You're not necessarily going to get that in the draft. And so I don't know. I think one thing is, like, I don't know who the other big man out there really on the market is. Like, it's a highly valued position. Size matters.
Josh
in the NBA.
Says the highest levels of basketball have who at center that we were worried about in the Eastern Conference that Keita and Garza and Ugo can't shove? Jalen Duren. It could be Nikola Jokic in the finals. It could be Victor Wembanyama in the finals. Like, that's not scary enough.
Houston Rockets in the finals are a giant team.
Mitchell Robinson was a
Josh
problem
Minot out there against Nikola Jokic. You're gonna throw Luka Garza out there against Nikola Jokic? Like,
the Celtics got destroyed last year in the minutes Mitchell Robinson was even on the court. Like, they just having a larger size presence and a guy who could breathe out there would have been helpful. Like, there's obviously they need a big man. They need a big man to play around Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. I don't think like trying to get that guy via the draft makes a lot of sense, but I don't know who the other necessarily available big men are. At some point, you have to give up the Celtics have done a very good job of not really giving up a lot of draft capital to kind of put together this core. They have their first round pick, I think, other than 2029. They have their own pick, and then there's the swap with the Spurs and the Derek White trade. Teams give up draft picks to get NBA ready players. Like, that is the way you do that. I don't think we should be so precious as Celtics fans with these draft picks, because they could hypothetically turn into something. Like, every time you get an Ugo, you also get a James White. Like, there's no guarantee in the draft. And so if it takes two first round picks, who did I say?
I think it's James White.
Who's James White?
James White was one of the
Super Bowl.
James White was also one of the extreme high flyers in NBA history.
James White started the game-winning touchdown in the Super Bowl
Flight
against the
White.
Celtics.
You don't remember James Flight White?
I can't say that I do.
That's sad.
Well, you live and you learn. I just don't know who the other kind of big men who are available. And so I think maybe there's some prudence there. Now I'm talking out the other side of my ass, is that like you don't maybe just do your deal for the first guy who's just like who's mentioned in a trade rumor, but everyone's saying Zubac is not the answer. Who is the answer? Like who can the Celtics add to this core that is an available big that you can get?
Everyone. I am saying Zubac would be an answer. I don't know if he's everyone the answer, because the answer suggests he would absolutely give you a title. I don't know if the Celtics would win a title with Zubac, but they would have a better chance for sure if Zubac was on their roster over the next 3 years to take advantage of that window, which it does look like they will have a window as long as Jason Tatum comes back and can be at least a close facsimile of Jason Tatum.
I don't know. He's probably the best realistic name on the market right now at that position, at that price point. And so if you're talking about other options, they're going to be not as good as him. Like Gafford, that's a step down. You go down to like cheaper guys, like Day'Ron Sharp. I mean, that's a situation where if you're going bargain basement hunting, then you don't have to move. I guess the upside of something like that is like you wouldn't have to necessarily move Simons or something like that for a guy like that if you just want to add another piece, an alternative. But is that a guy you're going to be able to trust in a playoff game either? Like, probably not. So if you want to get serious about contending against like the Jokic and the Wembys of the world in a finals matchup or a Chet, then you certainly have to inquire about the guys like this.
And like, I think he makes sense. Like $18 million a year for a starting level center is just like, that's the price you pay. It's
a good deal.
It's a great deal. You throw in this year's first round pick and like a 2031 first round pick. And then I think it's certainly a possibility. I don't know if the Celtics are desperate to make a move, but it's certainly intrigued by the possibility of adding Zubac at this point. But we'll see. Again, he might not even be available. We might be getting way too ahead of ourselves. And how shocking it is that we're talking this much about a trade rumor. No one in the NBA media likes to talk about trade rumors.
Let's talk Trae Young as well. Where would Trae Young possibly go that should worry the Celtics the most?
I don't even think there's a spot. That's my answer. Like
the Washington Wizards,
for Trae Young to land somewhere.
It's like literally. I don't know. I guess Trae Young has had his moments against the Celtics over the years. I just don't think those.
I have been one of the biggest Trae Young haters in the world. I feel like he is getting wildly disrespected.
Wow.
With the level of interest that is seemingly out there. Like Trae Young is damn tough to stop. And he makes his entire offense damn tough to stop. And so he's going to end up somewhere. He's going to really help somewhere offensively. He'll take a lot away defensively, but
The Raptors?
I actually think he is getting like the reactions to Trae Young are now just out of whack. Like, this is a guy who has delivered in the playoffs, has brought his team to the conference finals. Yeah, granted, that was weird.
How much credit do we give him for that?
They had Milwaukee on the ropes though. Like it's easy to remember now, but they put a scare into Milwaukee in the conference finals. And it wasn't just they got there. Like they were dangerous when they were there. And they were dangerous partly because Trae Young was very, very tough to stop. The Celtics have felt that in the playoffs. He's done incredible things against them in the playoffs. So like I said, I have been the biggest Trae Young hater. I think his defense is like just pathetic. It's clear like that the organization that he's played for hasn't really loved having him around all the time. But that said, some of the chatter about him has been just wildly disrespectful of just how impactful he is offensively.
But I'm looking at the teams in the Eastern Conference, like, who does he join their roster who doesn't like already have a point guard?
That's the problem. And that's why it's tough to find an Anthony Simons suitor as well.
Yeah. And these guys with like Simons makes 26, Trae makes what, $48 million. So it's
with
like,
a player option.
With a player option, exactly. So that's why it's literally like coming down to, I think what was Mark Stein reported the Wizards were a suitor because they're like, yeah, we'll take him for free. Like,
and we're
point,
so
like,
bad.
we
don't think he's going to opt in. We
right,
opt in.
Yeah,
to play
it's like we can rebuild his value more and then get because
I actually think getting Trae Young would be amazing work by the Wizards. If you could get him for what they're saying is like basically free, and then
CJ McCollum is not for free. That guy was made an all-star team
again for free. You boost his trade value. He averages 32 and 12 for you, and you trade him for a couple firsts, and you still lose with him because he has enough flaws. Like it's a perfect trade. It's the perfect trade.
I don't think that puts a scare into the Celtics, though. I'm not ready to defend that Alex Sarr, Trae Young pick and roll, but I don't think it necessarily changes the Celtics' prospects in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, I think Toronto's the only team where you could be like, as you brought Packard, like he can maybe an upgrade over it quickly, but there's been no rumblings there, and that team's already got too much money in the books as is, so they're probably out too.
Well, it's tough for the Atlanta Hawks. Maybe a Trae Young, Anthony Davis trade. I don't know if it makes any sense with Kyrie. It's fascinating the value of certain guys. Is certainly they just get to a point reputationally where it's just like that's just not. It's not sustainable. No one wants Trae Young anymore, which is kind of
a lot of good guards along the league.
A lot of talented basketball players in the NBA. I would say hard to make it in this league. Anything else, boys, before we wrap it up? Any other observations from Celtics Bulls? Anything you're looking forward to? Too bad Jokic got hurt before he came into town. Always seeing Jokic play is one of my favorite things. But you guys have anything else before we end this podcast?
Just devastating.
Sucks.
Wembanyama better come back before the Spurs come to Boston. That's all I got.
Have we seen an opposing all-star at the TD Garden this year? Feels
Jalen
like very
Brunson.
few. Yeah, Jalen Brunson, probably. That's like him and Maxey would pretty much it.
And the Houston Rockets came in and clobbered the Celtics.
Did Embiid play in Boston?
Yeah, wasn't he really bad?
He was terrible.
He had like 4 points, right?
We're talking about all-stars here, Jay.
All right, folks, that's going to do it from us. We really appreciate everyone participating in the chat, everyone who subscribes. If you want a daily show from us, go to patreon.com/stillpotable. Be back tomorrow on the Patreon with a little post-game wrap-up of Celtics Nuggets. We'll have free episodes for you twice a week. We really appreciate everyone who subscribes, reviews, gives us a rating. That really helps boost everything and helps us continue to build this little Celtics podcast community. We appreciate you guys for tuning into this episode of Still Potable.
Still Potable, Still Potable. Boston Steel Bottle, Steel Bottle.
Oh, yeah.
Slow down from eating and drinking and all that wild stuff.